It was a golden afternoon in Marietta, Georgia. The sun hovered low in the sky, casting long, dappled shadows on the quiet suburban streets. The air was thick with the scent of summer and fresh-cut grass. 9-year-old Maya Seagal was walking home from the local library, her backpack swinging gently with each step. She wore a purple hoodie, one sleeve slightly too long, and held a signed copy of The Secret Garden in one hand. She didn't run, didn't scream, didn't cause any trouble. She was simply walking home calm, careful, alone, 2 blocks from her house. A patrol car crept up alongside the sidewalk, engine low, tires crunching against the curb. Maya looked up. A police officer leaned out of the window. "You live around here?" he asked, his tone oddly sharp for such a simple question. Maya nodded. "Yes, sir, just a few houses down." The officer squinted, suspicious. "You got ID on you?" She blinked. "No, I'm 10. I just came from the library." He sighed dramatically, then opened his door with a groan and stepped out. His name badge read L.T. Bradley Kane. His boots were polished, his belt overcrowded. With gear, he walked toward her slowly, deliberately. "Where's your mom or dad?" "At work," Maya replied, her voice quiet but steady. "My uncle's home? What's your name?" "Maya." "Maya what?" "Maya Seagal." Kane paused, almost amused. "Seagal, that's supposed to mean something." Maya furrowed her brow, but didn't answer. She didn't need to. She'd been told never to lead with that name, but also never to lie. She backed up slightly as Kane came closer. "You're out here walking around like it's nothing? What if you're skipping school, running away, stealing?" he said, reaching for her backpack. "I just went to the library," she whispered, heart pounding now. He didn't listen. With no warning, he grabbed her arm and spun her around, wrenching the backpack from her shoulder. She screamed in shock. "Not pen yet." "Hands behind your back," he barked. "I didn't do anything," she cried. "Please don't." Her voice was cut short by a sickening crack. He twisted her small wrist too far. Maya collapsed to the sidewalk, crying, one arm bent at an unnatural angle. The book she was holding skidded into the gutter. "Pages bent and stained," Kane muttered. "Mouthy little kids think they can do what they want." He reached for his cuffs like she was a suspect. He never once radioed it and never once called for backup, just dragged a crying child toward his cruiser. But what he didn't know was that Maya, in her panic, had done exactly what her father taught her triggered. The emergency SOS shortcut on her it had sent a silent location ping and opened a live line to one person, Jenna Seagal, Maya's aunt, former air marshal, weapons instructor, and the only woman Steven Seagal ever trusted with his daughter's safety. The call rang 3 times before. Jenna answered. She heard the screams, the officer's voice, the shuffle of boots, and then that unmistakable crack. She didn't panic. She moved. At that moment, she was 6 miles away, running tactical drills at a private range. She dropped everything, stripped off her gloves, and sprinted to her truck. "Hold on, baby girl," she whispered to the silent call. "I'm coming." Meanwhile, across the country in New Mexico, Steven Seagal was wrapping up a charity martial arts seminar when his private line lit up. One look at the emergency code read, "Dovand," he turned cold. The room around him faded. The fans, the chatter, the staged smiles. Gone. He didn't even remove his G.I. Jenna. He barked through his satellite phone. "How bad?" "She's hurt. Real bad. Wrist or arm." "Cop's name is Kane. Bradley Kane." Steven inhaled slowly, a rumble rising in his chest. "He's still with her." "No." Dumped her in front of county urgent care and drove off. "Where are you now? 2 minutes away?" "Get her safe. Get her calm. Then don't let that man out of your sight. I'll deal with him." Jenna pulled into the hospital's emergency bay as Maya was being rushed inside. She didn't wait for security clearance. She stormed the reception desk. 10-year-old girl, broken wrist, name's Maya Seagal. Where is she? The nurse blinked. "Room for..." "But ma'am, you can't." Jenna was already gone inside. Maya lay curled up in a fetal position on the gurney, clutching her brace with trembling fingers. Her arm had already started to swell, the bruises forming a haunting bracelet of purple and green. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy. "Maya," Jenna said softly, approaching. Maya looked up, and the second she saw her aunt, she broke. He wouldn't stop," she cried. "I told him who I was. I told him I didn't do anything." Jenna dropped to her knees beside her. I've got you, she whispered, gently brushing hair from Maya's damp forehead. You did perfect? You survived. But he laughed. Maya whimpered. When I said I was Steven Seagal's daughter, he laughed. Jenna froze. That was no misunderstanding. That wasn't fear or poor judgment. That was personal. She turned to Ward. The attending nurse, get me a copy of the intake report and the hospital cam footage. Now, the nurse stammered. We'd need authorization. Jenna pulled her ID from her belt, a federal clearance badge that overrode most protocols. Now, in the hallway, she opened the call recording from the smartwatch and played the audio on speaker. The voice? The break. A passing security guard stopped in his tracks. Is that from today? It's from 5 minutes ago, Jenna said coldly, and the man who did this is going to learn what happens when you touch a Seagal. She wasn't bluffing. Back in the ER, Maya was sedated and placed in a temporary cast. The doctors confirmed a fractured radius. Clean break would heal. But the trauma, the shock of what she endured was harder to mend. Steven Seagal didn't call again. He was already en route. The sun was nearly gone by the time Steven Seagal touched down in Georgia. His private plane landed at a small, secured airstrip just outside Marietta. He didn't speak as he descended the steps. A black SUV idled nearby, engine rumbling low. Jenna stood beside it, arms folded, face blank. She's stable, she said before he asked. Clean break, but she's scared. More scared than I've ever seen her. Steven nodded once, climbed into the vehicle, and said nothing more for the entire ride to the hospital. At Marietta General, the emergency room had quieted. The staff were still whispering about what happened, stunned by the officer's decision. To leave a child behind like that, no report, no paperwork, no shame. Maya had been moved to a private recovery room, her cast padded, her breathing steadier. When Steven stepped inside, the room stilled. He looked down at his daughter. Her eyes fluttered open. Daddy, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Steven knelt beside her. I'm here, sweetheart. Her lip trembled. He hurt me. I know, he said, brushing his hand gently across her forehead. But you're safe now, I promise, he said. My name didn't matter. He laughed. Steven's jaw tightened, but his hand never left her. He doesn't get to laugh anymore. Outside the room, Jenna was already moving. She had what she needed: the emergency audio, the ER intake logs, the security footage. Kane's actions were recorded, documented, and what's worse, this wasn't his first offense. Within the hour, Jenna was in contact with a former internal affairs investigator based in Atlanta. He'd reviewed Kane's record and uncovered 3 past complaints, 2 for excessive force on minors, 1 for falsifying a report. All had been swept under the rug. 1 was marked sealed by special order. That order came from Sheriff Douglas Reeve, the county's longtime enforcer and Kane's longtime mentor. Jenna shared the findings with Steven in a dimly lit waiting room. He read the documents slowly, silently. The file on Kane's prior victim, 14-year-old boy from the West, side included grainy photos, a list of untreated injuries, and a statement that had been redacted due to lack of cooperation. Steven looked up. They buried this. Jenna nodded, and they thought they could bury Maya. Steven stood up. Not this time. By dawn, the incident had reached a small whistleblower site based in Savannah. Someone had leaked the audio. From Maya's emergency call, it spread like wildfire. First, in Georgia. Then beyond, the recording was Romia's pleas. Kane's voice, the snap of her arm. No editing, no music, just the truth. By noon, it was playing on national news. People didn't just listen, they responded. Protests began forming in front of the Marietta Police Department. Students, parents, journalists, justice for Maya signs filled the sidewalks. A mural of her face appeared overnight on a brick wall downtown with the words, "My name matters." And then came the bombshell. Sheriff Reeve held a press conference at 3 p.m., flanked by silent deputies. His face was rigid. "We are reviewing the incident involving Officer Bradley Kane," he said. "We urge the public to remain calm while internal procedures are followed." Steven was watching from the hospital room. He stood slowly, walked to the TV, and turned it off with a single press. Then he turned to Jenna. That evening, at exactly 6 p.m., Hidden Sparks released a video titled, "What Happens When You Hurt a Seagal." It opened with Maya's voice, soft and frightened. "I told him I didn't do anything, ... Then cut to Jenna, standing in front of the hospital. "This isn't about a name," she said. "It's about a system that lets officers like Bradley Cain walk free, time and time again." Then came the footage, the ER camera showing Cain dragging Maya to the sidewalk, the stomp, the lack of radio communication, the image of her curled on the curb, clutching her arm, and finally, Steven Seagal silent, staring into the lens like a storm gathering at sea. "We don't want vengeance," he said. "We want accountability." The video ended with a message. "Justice for Maya. This fight isn't over. It's just begun." By midnight, it had been viewed 1.2 million times. The next morning, Cain was nowhere to be found. His cruiser was parked in his driveway, but he hadn't reported for duty. Calls to his phone went unanswered. Neighbors claimed they saw him leave around 5 a.m., duffel bag in hand. Jenna tracked down his known contacts. One bartender, one ex-girlfriend, one half-brother in Alabama. Nothing solid. Then she got a hit from a private investigator she'd worked with in the past. Cain had been spotted at a gas station in rural Tennessee, buying burner phones and paying cash. He was running. Steven didn't flinch. "Let him run," he said. "The whole country's watching now." And he was right. By 3 p.m., the Georgia Bureau of Investigation had officially opened an inquiry. The governor released a statement expressing deep concern, and civil rights attorneys began calling Steven and Jenna nonstop, but none of it mattered as much as what came next. Jenna received a tip, anonymous, encrypted, and untraceable. A simple message: "Cain's not hiding. He's being hidden. Ask Reeve about Cabin 37. Jenna stared at the anonymous message for a long time. Cabin 37. She didn't ask questions. She didn't forward it to law enforcement. She simply opened her encrypted map, Cassia personal tool she and Steven used during their years in protection detail, located a state-owned reserve 30 miles north of Marietta. It had 41 hunting cabins, number 37, backed directly into the forest, with only one road in and out by the time night fell. Jenna was behind the wheel of a military-grade SUV, coasting through the dark pines. Steven rode beside her, silent, watching the trees like they might move. His daughter was safe at home under private guard. The world was loud with outrage, but for Steven, this was now quiet work, necessary work. They parked 200 yards out. No headlights, no radio, no sound. They approached the cabin on foot. A faint glow leaked from a side window. Inside, they saw him. Bradley Cain, unshaven, wearing an undershirt, sitting at a wooden table with a half-eaten sandwich and a pistol within reach. Jenna whispered. Sheriff Reeves shielding him. "This cabin's not just shelter, it's protection." Steven didn't answer. He moved. Within seconds, he reached the front porch and kicked the door open in one explosive motion. The door cracked off its hinges and slammed into the wall. Cain jumped to his feet, reaching for the gun. "Don't," Steven said. Daughter's voice was ice. Cain froze. "Sit down." Cain hesitated. Jenna stepped in next. "I said sit." He obeyed, slowly, breathing heavy. You can't just come in here. You're not." Steven tossed a file onto the table. Photos spilled out. Maya in the hospital bed, x-rays of her broken arm, screenshots of Cain's past complaints. A letter from a former deputy stating that Reeve had buried them. "You think we need a badge to stop men like you?" Steven asked, stepping closer. "You think being off-grid makes you invisible?" Cain tried to sound brave. "You're not?" "Law, no," Jenna replied. "But we're justice." Cain looked down at the images, his hand trembling. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that, ... She said her name, but I didn't believe her." Steven's fist slammed the table, making Cain flinch. "She's 10. Cain's lips moved, trying to form words. Reeve said he'd handle the fallout, said they'd discredit the footage. Jenna's eyes narrowed. "So it's not just you. It's all of you." Cain broke. Reeves scared. He said the girl's voice would ruin everything, that if we silenced her fast, it'd blow over. Steven leaned in, and now? Cain didn't answer. Jenna lifted her phone and hit send. A minute later, 3 unmarked SUVs pulled up to the cabin. civil rights agents, federal marshals, and in the backseat of one vehicle, the U.S. attorney for northern Georgia, they swarmed the cabin. Cain didn't resist as the cuffs snapped on his wrists. Jenna whispered, "You'll never hurt another child again." Stephen stood outside the cabin in the early morning mist, arms crossed as Cain was escorted away. The cameras had not followed. The press didn't know they were here. This reckoning was quiet, but not for long. 2 days later, hidden, Sparks released a follow-up video. The cabin, the cover-up, the collapse. It laid out everything. The protected hiding spot, Reeves' involvement, Cain's confession, and the full audio from Maya's smartwatch synced with security footage. And hospital logs. The nation exploded. News anchors, talk show hosts, educators, everyone had something to say, but none louder than the victims who now saw what was possible by the end of the week. Sheriff Reeve resigned. A federal grand jury opened investigations into the Marietta. PD. Cain was formally indicted on 5 felony charges, including aggravated assault, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to suppress evidence. And yet, it wasn't enough. Stephen sat beside Maya on their front porch that Sunday. She was sketching again, a girl with wings and bandages on her arms. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "You think the others will be okay too? Like the kids he hurt before?" Stephen looked at her. "Not unless we keep going." That same evening, Hidden Sparks launched Project Shieldlight, a digital initiative designed to track, expose, and prevent police abuse cases that went unpunished. Within 24 hours, it received over 23,000 verified case submissions. Jenna flew to Washington, D.C., where she addressed a full congressional committee on systemic abuse in law enforcement. She stood tall, clear-eyed, unapologetic. "We're not just asking for reform," she said. "We're building it ourselves." By now, the public had chosen a side, and it wasn't law enforcement. It was the 10-year-old girl who dared to speak. The final chapter came, unexpectedly. Cain requested a plea deal. He would plead guilty to all charges, in exchange for protective custody and the right to testify against those who helped hide him, including 3 active deputies and 1 local judge. The world watched as Cain stood, hands shackled, and spoke into a microphone. "I didn't stop because I didn't think I'd be punished. I'd done it before. Others had done worse. It always went away, but Maya didn't let it go. She called someone. Someone answered. And that's when everything changed." When he finished, he looked toward the Seagal family. Stephen didn't move. Jenna didn't blink, but Maya. Maya lifted her sketchbook and held up a new drawing. A tree growing from cracked concrete, and beneath it, in her handwriting, sometimes, "It starts with one voice." The entire courtroom stood. This time, not for the man in chains, but for the little girl who refused to be broken.